Hi guys, my name is Jasmine and I play the bass guitar. So I've been on YouTube for quite a long time and a lot of people have asked me how I learned to play the bass guitar and specifically how I taught myself to play the bass guitar. I'm actually a self-taught bassist and in this video I just wanted to share my journey with you guys and the 9 steps that I took to get from this to this. And from slapping like this to slapping like this. And I hope that by breaking down the steps of my bass journey, it'll help anyone that's aspiring to learn the bass and just isn't sure how to first start going about learning this new instrument. But yeah, without further ado, let's get started. Step 0, get a bass. So the reason why this is step 0 is because I'm assuming that you already have a bass guitar because it's kind of hard to learn an instrument if you don't actually have it. But I wanted to include this step because I feel like I can give a few suggestions on how to pick your first bass. Essentially, you don't need to pick anything fancy. Anything that's functional will do fine. The first bass that I ever bought was a red bass from a Korean brand. I think it was called J&D. I used it for about 2 years before switching over to my Sterling Music Man, which I still play to this day. It was totally fine for the first couple of years learning the bass guitar, and you can actually see me play it in some of the earlier videos on this channel. Step 2, listen. So this sounds obvious, but in order to be able to play an instrument, I think it's important to be able to train your ears to be more sensitive to picking out the bass line and be familiar with the role it plays in different genres of music and specifically the style of music that you want to play. I think this will provide a good foundation for learning bass lines by ear later on. For example, I used to listen to a lot of Queen, Bon Jovi, 80s metal, and of course, Red Hot Chili Peppers, and I would always be listening out for the bass line, and sometimes I would even hum it to myself. And to be honest, this step can be done concurrently with other steps or even before you've purchased your first bass guitar. Step 2, technique basics. So the first basic technique that I think most people start off learning, myself included, is the finger plucking technique. So this step is where YouTube can come in really handy. There's so many beginner bass tutorials out there, and I don't think it really matters specifically which one you pick, but I will leave a few in the description that I think I found helpful. Alternatively, you can just watch other bassists and copy what they're doing. I used to do that a lot with Davidson Rocks' videos. His name is different now on YouTube. I'll leave the link below. But yeah, I found his videos really helpful. I learned so much from just watching and copying him play. So don't underestimate what you can learn from just observing someone else and just replicating what they're doing. To be honest, at this point, your technique does not need to be perfect, but try not to pick up on too many bad habits because it'll be quite difficult to get rid of later. This is where watching other people might come in really handy. But again, it doesn't need to be flawless. Just be comfortable enough to start learning songs. And the reason why I think you don't need to fret about getting the technique absolutely flawless is because I think you'll have a lot of opportunities later to be able to practice it. Step 3, learning with tabs. So now that you've learned the absolute basics of how to move your fingers along the bass, it's time to start learning some very simple songs. And this will allow you to be able to practice the technique that you've just learned. The reason why I have suggested tabs is because it makes it easy for you to focus on the technique and you don't need to worry about trying to figure out songs using your ears just yet. Alternatively, you can use exercises. But the reason why I don't suggest exercises is because I personally find them very boring. And I think by picking the right songs, it can serve a similar purpose. I would suggest to pick different songs based on your level of proficiency. For example, pick easier songs first that might only have the root notes and that are slower, and move on to progressively more difficult songs. The very first song that I ever learned was Hey Jude. Even though I don't have footage of me playing that, I do have footage of me playing Crazy Little Thing Called Love, which I think I learned only a week or two after I started learning the bass. As you can see, I was pretty bad. I was slowly working on my technique, and as the days and the months went by, I started to learn harder and harder songs that would challenge me in different ways in order to get better and better at my bass playing. Step 4. Learning by ear. So as we all know, free online tabs aren't always correct. I would suggest to slowly start weeding off tabs and use more and more of your ears to learn new songs. This will allow you to expand your repertoire, and also later on it can help you learn bass solos, can help you pick up mistakes while you're playing the bass, and also help you jam better with musicians. To this day, I don't use tabs at all. I learn all of my songs by ear, and I honestly think learning songs by ear is an indispensable skill. Step 5. Play a lot and record yourself. So at this stage, you might know a good couple of songs, you feel comfortable playing the bass, and you can even learn songs by ear. I would suggest to start building mileage, building volume. Just like someone that's trying to train for a marathon, in order to get better at something, you just have to keep doing it. I used to build playlists of all the songs that I ever learned, and I would just jam with them on shuffle. At the same time, you can also start recording yourself. You'll learn how you sound like when you play it, how you look like when you play it, and you'll also be able to pick out mistakes more easily. And when I say play a lot, I mean play a lot. When I first started playing the bass, I was playing upwards of 6 hours a day. I remember I used to learn a new song every day or every other day, and I would just post it on YouTube immediately. So yes, at this stage, practice, 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 but also have fun by practicing songs that you like. Step 6. Jam and create. So now that you're pretty comfortable playing the bass guitar and you've got a good amount of bass volume behind your belt, you can start to get creative. For example, the easiest way is to just embellish the bass lines that you've already learned with riffs and fills and licks that you came up with. And also, you don't have to create only just by yourself. Playing with other musicians can really help you become a better bassist as well. As you can see, I started really early on. I was playing with my friends, even only a couple weeks after purchasing my first bass. And to this day, I still continue to build on my ability to play with other musicians and to be able to create new things with them. And so to be honest, this step and the subsequent 2 to 3 steps kind of get a little bit blurry. They're very overlapping and they kind of carry on throughout your lifetime. But I just wanted to highlight this order because this is the general direction that I followed. Step 7. Building on your technique. So step 7 actually encompasses 2 parts. So the first part is improving the technique that you already know, and the second part is adding to it, so learning new, more advanced techniques. For example, with finger plucking, I used to pluck really aggressively and efficiently, as you can see from some of my older videos. But in order to learn more challenging songs and songs where I had to play faster, I had to learn to be a bit more efficient. I had to play lighter, use economy of motion. And that process was me learning how to get better by using songs that challenged me progressively. Apart from improving the things that you already know, you can also learn new techniques. For example, slap was one of the first other bass techniques that I had ever learned. And I basically went through the same steps from 2 to 6 to get better at slap bass. However, one of the limitations of only using songs to help you practice this new technique is that you might not be able to find the perfect song that is suited for your level of proficiency at this stage, especially when you're just starting. So you can always use exercises, or another way you can work around this is by adapting existing songs that use other techniques, but just replace, for example, finger plucking with slap bass. Step 8. Theory. So the reason why this is the penultimate step is because for me personally, I've gotten this far without even knowing the notes of my bass guitar. It's the mind-boggling. I truly and honestly believe that you don't need to know music theory in order to be able to play an instrument and have fun, especially when you have your ears to count on.
Stop it. Get some help.
But if you really want to hone in your craft and take it to another level, knowing music theory will help you immensely. These basic building blocks include knowing the notes on your bass guitar, major scales, minor scales, pentatonic scales, time signatures. To be fair, my situation might be a little bit different because I was a classically trained pianist and I had learned piano for about 11 years. I knew the music theory. I just didn't know how to apply it to bass. And I kid you not when I say that. I know the names of the 4 strings, but I don't actually know the notes that I'm playing. And I made it work. I can play the bass, albeit not knowing music theory does hinder me in quite a few ways. I find it difficult to understand what I'm playing, and so I hope that this year I can take the time to get better at my music theory. I have even purchased a book, and I hope that this is the year I'll get better at my very foundational music theory knowledge. Step 9. Rinse and repeat. So to be honest, learning bass doesn't stop at any particular time point. Learning bass is a lifelong process, and a lot of these steps will actually need to be repeated, but in different contexts. But ultimately, when you're learning any instrument, consistency is key. And it's difficult to be consistent if you don't actually enjoy what you're doing. So if anything, just make this process fun. Play the things that you like to play, and the rest will follow. So that concludes this video, guys. I hope that was helpful for people that were hesitant and starting to teach themselves the bass. I hope I made it sound more accessible, and with that, I shall see you in my next video. Bye guys.